Hi, this is Scott with Specter Gear. For today's product spotlight, we're going to be taking a look at the three different types of two-point slings that we currently manufacture. Our Raider sling, our Raptor sling, and our Recon sling. All three of these slings do the same thing. However, each one does it a little bit differently in terms, whether it's either the operational differences or material differences in terms of how it's made. So the intent of today's video is not so much to deep dive into each one of the sling designs, but rather compare and contrast the features and material differences of the slings so you can make a more informed buying decision. But let's start off with getting into that thing that all three of these slings do. They're all two-point slings, and what that means is, and we'll talk about the term point, what a point is in terms of a sling is a point of influence or control that the sling imparts upon the weapon. So our first point is going to be at the rear of the sling, and that's going to control the position and orientation of the buttstock. And all three slings share pretty much that same rear attachment feature that would attach to the weapon or the adapter. The second point of control is going to be at the front of the weapon, and that's going to control the orientation and positioning of the muzzle of the weapon. And all three slings pretty much lay out the same way. Now, where we start to differ is going to be in terms of the materials and the adjustment buckles, and we'll start to get into that. But the way the sling actually works, let's talk about how I would set up this Raider sling, for instance, and in doing so, it'll show you kind of how the main party piece of this comes in, because, well, I talked about 2 points. The 3-point sling has a third point of control, and that third point of control controls the drop and the slack on the sling. And why I said this was a misnomer earlier is a 2-point sling actually does that as well. It just doesn't do it by having a piece of webbing come across the front of your body. What it does is it features this adjustment system at the front of the sling that will control the drop. It will allow you to expand and contract the sling. So you do get that third point of control. It's just something that you pretty much mechanically control yourself. And to show how that operates, let's get back to how would I set up, for instance, this Raider sling on a weapon. So of course I would attach it at each end, at the front and the rear of the weapon, whether it's an adapter or swivel set or whatever. And we'll get into that when we get into how each of these slings interfaces with each of the weapon systems out there. That's coming. Those are videos that will be popping up in the very near future. But so I would attach the sling at each end. The next thing I would do is move this adjustment buckle right back to about the center point on this webbing, okay? And that's done in this case by opening up the cam buckle and moving it to the rear, or just simply on these slings grabbing this paddle and moving that to the center portion. So we get that to the center portion. Now this is going to be basically the sweet spot for the sling. This is the position we're going to be doing most of our shooting from. So with the sling properly adjusted, and I would adjust first off by moving this tri-glide right here, either expanding or contracting the sling. If need be, I could run more slack through this tri-glide right here and then cut and trim and get that buckle back to its center point. But once everything's set up and the sling basically looks like this, the adjustment buckle is in the center of the adjustment strap, and I can comfortably go from low ready to firing position, and everything feels right. That's going to be where we're going to run this thing from. Now, where this buckle comes into play and makes this a very versatile sling is, let's say I'm in my normal firing position and I have to shoot from something like an urban prone, or I have to do, a high angle shot, and I'm fighting against the sling and I need more slack on the sling. All I do is just open it up to the point to where I can now comfortably fire, let go, and I'm good. When I'm moving from that position, I can move it right back to the sweet spot again, and we're good to go. If I needed to do a shoulder transition, for instance, and this will be something that I'll have to show on the range, and that is coming here in the next couple of weeks. But something real interesting here is we have the rule of twos, okay? So I've got a nice handy little ruler here to work off of. So if you measure from here to here, we're looking at about almost 11 inches. Now what that means is if I need to adjust this out, I can actually add 22 inches of slack, because I'm going to take this 11 inches, but I'm also going to take that 11 inches. So if I run this thing all the way to the rear, Look how much slack I just put on that. That's a lot. Because again, I just added 22 inches to the overall length of the sling, which is significant. From there, I could execute a cross-shoulder transition if I have the sling oriented properly or set up properly for that. We'll show that later. But the point is, I'm not going to be fighting against the sling. I can adjust it on the fly as need be. Now, let's say we need to go in the opposite direction, and I need to tighten this sling up nice and tight on the body. Maybe I'm going to be moving in to do a suspect control thing, so I'm going to transit the weapon to my back, and I want to pull it in nice and tight. Or I could be operating in a very confined space, and I need to transition to the pistol to fight effectively, and I want to pull the gun in real tight on the front of my body. All I do then is just run this thing all the way forward, or to its tightest position. And for most folks, that's going to snug that up real tight against the body. You're not going to be able to operate the weapon from that position. It's going to lock it in place. So if you need to get it up and get firing again, you're going to have to pop it open and then come up into your firing position. But the neat thing is you can trombone this thing back and forth to adjust it on the fly to whatever circumstance you're currently faced with. So again, it's a pretty versatile sling system. And in many ways, I'm going to say superior to the 3-point sling. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that slings have kind of evolved in that direction. Now, in terms of cross-shoulder transitioning, that's the realm of the 1-point sling. More on that later. But getting back to the 2-point sling, let's now talk about the material differences and mechanical differences between each of the slings. Now that we've kind of looked in an overall standpoint of how they operate. So the first sling we'll look at is our Raider. The Raider is the first one that we came out with. It's consequently our most heavy duty and probably most deluxe of the 3 2-point slings. There's a couple of interesting options for this as well. But the first thing to note, and we won't really discuss the attachment points here. Again, they're the same between each one. The webbing is 1 inch wide. It's the same pocket attachment ladder system that we use in our MOLLE applications, and we use that same webbing for the adjustment strap. I'll talk about that more in a moment. The main strap portion, the portion that actually goes over your shoulder, is the same Goldilocks zone webbing that we use in our 3-point sling applications. And it's that stuff that's not too thick, not too thin, not too flimsy, not too rigid. It's just right. It's non-abrasive. It's durable. It's rugged. Excellent webbing. We're very, very happy with it. But in this case, it's 1.5 inches wide. 1.5 inches wide is going to, again, there's not much difference between, you're only talking a 1/4 inch difference between 1.25 inches and 1.5 inches, but it is remarkable how well that extra width of that webbing distributes the load on the heavier weapons. So for guns like M1As, FNFALs, G3s, heavy guns or shotguns, this is an excellent application for that. So again, main strap portion is our adjustment buckle, is our closure buckle, open circuit design so that it can be trimmed to fit if need be. Each of the 3 slings also features an emergency release buckle. It's a standard feature. It's not an upgrade feature. And what this is for is if you should get hung up in the sling at any point and you need to get out of it in a hurry, you just simply hit that and it breaks the sling in half and you are out immediately. So it's a good safety feature. Now we come to basically our transition point where we neck down from 1.5 inches to 1 inch. And our adjustment strap, and this is the same for all 3 slings, is again that same pocket attachment ladder system webbing that's used in MOLLE applications. It's thicker and a bit rougher in texture than Type 17-337, so that means it's going to lock into tri-glides more effectively. It's also going to be more durable over the long run, because if you think about it, you can be sliding either this adjustment buckle or this cam buckle up and down that webbing, and you need something that's going to resist friction quite a bit, and this does that very, very effectively. And it's also fairly lightweight as well. So it's good durable stuff. And in this case, on the Raider sling, our adjustment buckle at the front is a steel alloy combination buckle. It is spring-loaded. It is self-locking. And one nice thing is it's also mechanically locking, in that if you think about it, if you're going to have a tension point on this, it's going to be in this direction. So it's going to be a pulling in each direction type force. that is only going to lock this cam buckle down tighter. It's going to resist opening even more so. So the spring is only there to just close that that latch for you. So the buckle features a nice handy little hole. In our standard setup, we hang this piece of cord off of here, and it's knotted and locked. The open portions are locked down with a closure device. If you want to, you can shorten this. You can trim this and shorten this down. I tend on my own to only run just about 2 inches of cord on them. The reason being is I find that it's the closer you get to this buckle, the easier it is to operate it. Because it is, in terms of operating this, you have to do 2 things that are counterintuitive. You have to open it, but now you have to move it in the direction that you would be closing it. So it's a real simple jump, and most people that use this tumble to this, but I'm just going to tell you straight up, use this cord to locate, snake up, and operate very close to the buckle. I actually use the actual paddle itself as I move this thing back and forth, and it'll work just fine at that point. Where some people have had trouble is they're trying to operate everything by pulling out and then now trying to pull to the rear. And if you think about it, that's not going to work very effectively. So you do have to snake in. Now, an upgrade to that, and something that adds a little bit of useful survival cordage to you, is our braided lanyard option. Now, what the braided lanyard option does is it eliminates this open loop, so it creates a no-snag paddle handle, one that's easy to grab a hold of and more effectively operates this cam buckle for you. But it also provides 4.5 feet of usable 550 paracord should you need it later. Just simply open up this device, unravel the thing, and you've, like I said, you got 4.5 feet of 550 cord on the sling. And because it's a really neat Cobra knot, it looks pretty cool too. Kind of a neat upgrade, and we found it to be particularly popular. So that is the Raider Sling kind of in a nutshell. I have an upgrade to the Raider Sling that I'm going to show at the end, but we'll wait to get to that point. Let's move on now to the Raptor Sling, which is the next 2-point sling that we did in our lineup. And this one, main differences are 1.25 inch webbing rather than 1.5 inch, but it's the same type of webbing, same type of adjustment, everything being the same. The difference is going to be the actual adjustment buckle. In this case, we went with a non-mechanical tension lock device, and basically this is just a ladder lock. You see these used on backpacks and other type of lashing type systems, and it works in the same way, but is in fact faster than this one, because you grab this paddle and all you do on this is just run it back and forth. You don't have to impart any kind of action other than just moving the buckle. You don't have to pull it outward. You don't have to finesse it in any way. You just simply grab the paddle and run that thing to where you want and let go. Everything is locked in place by tension. If there's no tension on there, yeah, you can move it around. But the second you apply even the slightest amount of tension, this thing nosedives and locks in place. And we found this to be a very, very effective adjustment device. But some people do prefer, especially with heavier weapons, to have something more substantial than plastic. Now, having said that, to date we've sold thousands of these types, and we've not once had a single failure of the adjustment buckle on this. Knock on wood, but yeah, it's a good solid piece, and again, I've seen those used on backpacks for years, and those backpacks are carrying a lot more weight than any particular weapon system that we would be carrying. Of note also, this particular buckle here, some of you older guys may have seen this before. This is the adjustment ladder lock, basically, or the adjuster for the LC1 pack system. So I've seen these things holding more weight than a human should ever be allowed to carry on LC1 large packs, and I've never seen one of these things crap out either. But it's a personal choice kind of thing. Either one is heavy duty enough for our purposes, so we're happy either way. And it's more of a personal preference thing. And along those lines, this particular system, that sneak peek that I was telling you about in terms of what we might have in the future, is kind of like In-N-Out. We have sort of an unpublished menu, and we have some items that we've made for years for other agencies and people, and what they are is kind of unpublished prototypes and custom systems that we've done. But one of those is a real simple one, and it's just simply this adjustment system set up so that it plugs into, I bumped the tripod again, plugs into this sling. And now you have a Raider sling that features a Raptor front adjuster. The first agency we did this for was a police department just to the east of us, and they bought a bunch of them. And it's a system I kind of like. We haven't gotten around to it yet just because it's time consuming to put this stuff on the site, but that is going to be a new sling that we will have out fairly soon. So you can have this particular layout with this particular adjustment setup. So look for that to appear again in the very near future. And the last sling we'll talk about is going to be our Recon sling, and this one differs in a number of really fundamental ways. And I really get into that on the spotlight video that I do for this, but it features the same adjustment strap that the Raptor uses, but it differs in that it uses type 17 337 webbing instead of your more traditional sling type webbing. Now, all things being equal, they're both 1.5 inches wide, so it distributes the load in exactly the same way in reality. The thickness of the webbing in this direction actually doesn't matter. It will in terms of some types of durability issues, but type 17 337 webbing is some pretty tough stuff. I mean, I think the break strength on that particular webbing is like 2,500 pounds. You're going to blow out every buckle on this thing before you actually break the webbing. So it's durable stuff, but where this really, its real party pieces is in how it conforms to the body and its lightweight nature, because this sling is way lighter than this one. Now, for a lot of folks, a couple of ounces of weight, not even a couple of ounces, portions of an ounce of weight on a sling doesn't necessarily equate to that much of a savings overall, but some people are that they adhere that strictly to weight restrictions. But the thing I really like about it is just how well it conforms to the body. And you know, it's something that needs to be felt and experienced to actually get it, but that'll be one that I'm going to show out on the range because there is a particularly good demonstration point that I can do on this, but I have to have it slung up in order to do it. But in a nutshell, that is the 3 different types of 2-point slings that we currently offer. Again, videos to follow will dive deeper into each particular model, and then we will also be we'll branch out from there and start discussing how each of these slings interfaces with each particular weapon system. So again, you can see the different types of adapters or options that you have for attaching a sling to your weapon. So I hope that was informative on some level for you folks. Again, it really comes down to what's your preference. If I had to lay it out, if I'm dealing with something that's particularly heavy, FNFAL, M1A, G3, shotguns, I'm gonna lean in the direction of the Raider sling. For lighter weight weapons, I would switch back and forth between these two. But in reality, the preference I tend to lean towards, if I'm running like my Car 15 or something fairly light, I tend to run the Recon on those because it just conforms a little better, and also I like the multicam aspect of it. We only have multicam available for sling applications in this particular format. I think it looks pretty cool. So with that, I'll bring it to a close, and I thank you for listening, and again, look forward to more videos on this stuff in the very near future. So if you're looking for information on these, of course, you can visit us at www.spectergear.com. There'll be links in the description to take you to each of the locations on the website where you can find these slings. So with that, I will bring it to a close. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.